Are you ready?
Starting now?
Oh, now you just messed it up, you knob. God, you know that the shit that we go through for this, huh?
I know. Fuckers better appreciate it. When we started, we were just like, yeah, we're just going to do this, man. You know, shoot our wad into the wind and see what happens. What's the title of this podcast again?
I don't know. I don't know. Something with a penis, I guess.
Right.
Our fucking faces are everywhere now.
Right.
You know, but
You're welcome, ladies.
Right. Popular with the ladies. Right. Oh, I'm not even going to apologize because hopefully it sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, totally. This is fucking explicit now.
The explicit button. Let me use my finger.
La, 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 la.
It is time for another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And that episode starts now. All right, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And we actually have a guest. And Ashley, go ahead and introduce yourself and your podcast if you could.
Sure. My name is Ashley Hassan, and I am the host of Sober Girl Podcast. Yeah,
well, welcome. And Mike is still here, right, Mike?
Yeah, I'm around.
He's the other half of this thing that we do. So we've been actually promoting this. God, has it been a month, I think, since we started promoting this?
Oh my God, I feel like it's more than that. I feel like we've done such a good job at promoting it.
But yeah, so our plan here just for everyone is that, we came together basically in our recording studio, but this is truly a joint episode. We want to, Ashley is I guess, quote unquote, a guest, but we don't want to look at it that way. We've got a lot of things to talk about. She's got questions. We got questions. Just an opportunity for us to shoot the shit, get to know each other, and hopefully do the same for everyone else. So, only thing though, and Mike, and Ashley, the last couple of weeks we've been doing like a reading at the beginning of the episode. So Mike and I always do meditation readings and stuff like that. Did I catch you off guard, Mike?
Well, yeah, I thought we were like doing a different format, so I didn't grab my shit.
No, that's okay. And that's what I was going to ask. I thought about it coming into this. I'm like, you know what? It still might not be a bad idea to do a reading.
I actually gave it a thought, and I was all, we got a guest. I'm just going to leave the books upstairs.
Do you have your book? So you don't have your book available?
I don't.
Okay. All right. So you know what? We won't worry about it then, because you're tied in now with your computer and stuff like that. Okay. So
staying sober is the most important thing in my life
today.
There we go. We've done it.
All right. Cool. So yeah, one way or the other, I just thought it might be something for us to look at. But hey, you know what? I threw that on you. So Ashley, this is how things go with us. You know, we have this semi-plan in our head, and then best laid plans, as they say. But just a little bit of a backstory for everyone, and I think that Ashley, we connected with you through Instagram, I think probably months ago.
Yes.
And I don't even remember when it was. I know we were connected on Instagram, and I don't remember what, I think I was just looking for other podcasts to listen to. And when I connected with you, I knew you had a podcast, and I don't remember if I knew I hadn't listened to any of the episodes, so I started doing that. And the funny thing is that, and Mike and I kind of joke about this all the time, is that you are, along with a lot of these other folks that do podcasts, you are so nice. And I tell Mike this all the time. I'm like, all these other people, I said, especially the women that are doing podcasts, it's like, we're so happy you're here. They're so supportive. And Mike and I are calling. He's signed. Ashley, tell everyone what he signed in on here. What his name is.
Fuckhead.
Yeah. Mike signed. He signs into the thing as fuckhead, and the back and forth that we have sometimes. But we're all about recovery. We're serious about our recovery, but we're certainly not as nice as you. But I have listened to
it's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, you're one step ahead of a guy signing into a podcast as fuckhead, if that makes you feel any better. But just I don't know if you want to give just a little bit of background about how you started. I don't recall how many episodes you have, but I've listened to all your episodes, even the most recent one. So just a little bit of a background on how you even got into the podcast itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So it goes along with a big topic I really want to talk about and shed some light on. So
Yeah.
I started the process of getting my license back. So my license was permanently suspended. So I had to go through a lot of different things that took almost 2 years to get my license back. So I started on TikTok and I would go live and have like non-AA meetings. That's a big part of my story is that I didn't do AA. So I would just go on every single day at the same time. So people knew that's when I would be on. I would be on for like 3-4 hours, like just chatting with people in recovery, having like people pop into the box. And I just really started, I was very closed off to like my sobriety, didn't really talk about it with anyone I didn't know. And I just felt like all of the steps that I was going through were so stressful. And I was like, if it's stressful for me, it has to be stressful for other people, and like a very thin line of like, would this make someone else relapse? Like I have said to my husband 1,000 times, if I didn't have you, I don't know what I would have done because I was just a mess at sometimes. So the process was grueling, and the people that were on there were like, you need a podcast. So I was like, oh, okay. And then, so then I was like, okay. And then I just started asking people if they wanted to be guests. I had this guy and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And I kind of had been on one podcast already, and he literally just showed me the ropes, told me what to do, answered all my questions. And I just started my podcast. I do go through it. My story has a lot to do with like trauma and different things. So I tend to lead more to those stories and those people because I feel like I have more of a connection, but I'm down for anybody. But I ask some hard questions. So I try to get the person that I'm talking to, I talk to them beforehand and I'm like, look, this is like the gist of what I'm going to ask. I don't like to give questions because I feel like that ruins the organic level for me.
Right.
So I just kind of really just explain to them that I want them to be as open as possible. And if they can't do that, then maybe come on when they're ready to do that. So that's pretty much what I do. And I really enjoy it. And it's because I don't do any kind of meetings or anything like that. It really just grounds me in that respect to do it. Because it's kind of like I'm having an hour meeting with someone else.
Right.
And we're talking about stuff, and it's great.
Well, it's funny, and Mike, I don't think anyone asked us to start a podcast, did they?
No, hell no.
So sometimes people have asked us to shut the hell up, as far as I know.
That's happened.
So you know what's funny is that, and we started this all on a whim, but the one thing that both of us have agreed on is that this podcast now, exactly what you just said. This is an hour-long meeting, and to begin with, that was our motivation. I mean, Mike and I just getting together because he lives in Cleveland, I live in Wisconsin now. We both got sober out there. We've been friends since basically. Well, we've been around each other since day one when we got sober. So
Right.
coming up on 13 years now, and we're brothers now, we're family now, and all that stuff, but we just don't get that amount of time to spend together, so that was our thing. We're like, we're just going to get on and talk shit. And then
Yep.
the idea of having guests, when did we have our first guest? That wasn't until like the mid 20 some episodes, 23, 25.
Yeah.
Because when the whole Anchor thing, and we still use Anchor to publish our podcast, but we switched to this recording studio at episode, I think, again, it was 23 or something like that, but just a little bit easier format to bring people on and whatever. But the whole point is that, I mean, we just kind of started off, and Mike, tell her what your expectations were when we started.
Oh, I had absolutely none. Yeah, like you said, man, we were just going to get together and shoot the shit, and if somebody wanted to listen, cool, and if they didn't, we really didn't care. Still don't.
Yeah, and you know what? Really, what it comes down to, and in our follower base is growing. We've never taken, I can't say never, but we take dips a little bit in our followers. That's why I say people probably want us to shut the hell up sometimes, but so as far as our Instagram, follower base, but the podcast itself has grown, and we get some. The coolest thing is we get some really great feedback every once in a while, and I'm sure I know for a fact that you do too. That's what makes all this shit worthwhile, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the most feedback I get is from people who aren't even sober. For
Yeah,
me,
we
on
get a
my
lot of that
side,
too.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and it really is nice. It's a lot of people, like, I have a lot of sister-in-laws, so it's like their moms will listen and then message them and they'll screenshot that to me. But it's really nice to get that from somebody outside the box, if that makes sense. Like it's like solidifies what I'm doing and that I'm doing the right thing.
Well, and that's what Mike's girlfriend Chris is a normie, and because you said they listen, she's got people at work to listen, right, Mike?
Yeah. We got all kinds of normies that listen.
Yeah, she's got people at her work. Her kids are not part of this thing or anything like that. So, our sister made some great comments about it. We've gotten I would say probably some of the most deep and sincere comments that we've gotten or feedback has been from normies, right?
Right. Yeah, well, we can't count on the goddamn drunks and junkies to do anything.
Yeah, because we know we're all about us. So
that's right.
So now the one thing too, and I had mentioned this to Mike when I first started listening to your podcast. So, well, I think that we were brought up, raised up, still live by all the AA principles and things like that. Mike goes to his home group every week. I don't go to meetings actively, unless I'm out in Cleveland, but still love the meetings, and that's how we were taught, and it's good for us and all this sort of things. But if I'm not mistaken, you stepped into AA and then took a little bit of a different path from that, correct?
Yeah. So I had a big part of my story, which a lot of people who I think are going to listen to this already know. But I went to jail for 4 months. I got sober my sobriety date is the day I went to jail. So as most people celebrate it and it's like this good thing, for me, it's like a 50-50. Because it's the anniversary of when I went to jail and it's the anniversary of the day I got my life together. So I got out of jail. And I was just trying to get acclimated to everything. And I really had like serious boundaries. I barely talked to anybody and just had to figure my shit out. And my family all of them were like, I think you should go to a meeting. I think you should go to a meeting, like whatever. So I was like, fuck it, I'll go. So there's one down the street. So I was like very active at that time. So I just walked because I couldn't drive. So I walked like 45 minutes to go to the meeting one way. And the first time I went to the meeting, I was like, it's okay. There were like one or two younger people like around my age. And I was just like, oh, okay. And people were nice. And then the second time I went, the guy asked me to speak. And I mean, at this point, I'm 6 months sober, right? And I had used no program. Jail was not there to help you. Like, they couldn't even get me into the meetings because they were full. They told me I could go the week before I left, and I was like, no, I'm straight. So I ended up just sharing like my story and kind of what I've been doing. And they just this one guy just like went in on me, and I was like, okay, this is not a safe place and I'm not doing this again. And I left, and the younger kid came up to me and he was like, he's like, no matter whatever's keeping you sober, that works for you. And this doesn't look the same for everybody. So I left and I was just like, yep, I'm good. Like, I don't need to do this, but it did drive me to find another way because I felt like I needed something. Like, it couldn't just be, just therapy, whatever. I'm like, I needed like a structure to begin this foundation on my own. So because I was in a controlled area for 4 months, like, yes, could I have found some kind of shitty alcohol somewhere? Probably, but that wasn't on my mind. My mind was, I need to fucking fix my life.
Right.
So I just kind of went to Russel Brand and I started listening to his podcast, and there was not really a social media anything for really sobriety. And I wasn't in a place where I wanted to talk about it. So he was like promoting his book. So I was like, all right, I had a Barnes & Noble gift card. I was like, I'm going to go get the book. I got his book. And then I think her name's Tiffany Jenkins. And she had a crazy story, kind of very similar to mine, but just not with alcohol. So I got both the books, and his book laid out like what the program, how they would word like step 1 through 10, and how like you take it in normal English language. And he did both programs, so he just put all that information in there, and it was the best thing I ever did. I did all of the step work through that book.
Yeah, and I thought that was I thought that was interesting because there's and Mike and I talked about that too from a celebrity standpoint because there's obviously Russell Brand is very vocal. Craig Ferguson, who
Right.
else? Mike, who are the other? There's a couple other dudes that are. Oh, Mark Maron. Mark Maron's pretty
Right.
vocal.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis is super vocal.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
The guy that plays Iron Man. I'm like losing his name right now.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey
Yeah.
Jr. Very, very open.
Yeah. Rob Halford from Judas Priest. He just posted his 36 years or something like that. Yep.
Damn.
Bradley Cooper.
Oh yeah, God, I forgot about him. And then, of course, Mike's favorite band, Alice Cooper. That dude's been sober for how long's he been sober now?
Yeah, he's since the early 80s. So whatever that works out to.
Stevie Nicks. Stevie Nicks is sober.
Yep.
Yeah, was. or is she sober, Mike?
No, I have no idea. I
believe because I think I'm pretty sure because I didn't actually know that. We went and saw her in September, didn't know that. And then something ended up popping up on my TikTok about her talking about it. And she looked the way she looked at the concert. So I'm assuming it's within the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
And so she was talking about what she would do and things that she would do and stuff like that. So
right. Well, you know what? And I don't remember, and you haven't mentioned it yet. What's your sobriety date?
4/3/2019. So I'm coming up on 4 years.
Awesome. You said 4 what?
4 years.
No, I know, but the date again?
Oh, 4/3.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's kind of funny. I mean, it must be a good month because mine is my anniversary is April 18th, and Mike's is the 22nd. So.
Oh my God, that's my mom's birthday, and my birthday's on the 24th.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah.
Yeah, April must be a good month. And here's a fun part too: is that and we've talked about this before, but there's from April through what do we figure, Mike? April through November. You know, the number of people. There's still. Probably out of the 50 guys or whatever that were there at the time at the Keating Center, there's at least 10 that are still sober.
Right.
You know, for the amount of time since 2010 when we got sober, you know, so which is kind of cool. And we did the straight, you know, AA stuff. And Mike's had more of a background in different things, you know, in the past. He was in California did some of the more, what do you call it? The more touchy-feely stuff, Mike?
Yeah, that's it.
lots of hugs and talking about feelings and things like that. And the funny part too, so you're in, and I'm not going to ask your exact location, but you're like the northeastern part of the country, right?
What's your address?
Yeah. I live in Connecticut. I'm pretty centralized, like mid-centralized. I put my like town, but I live in Norwich, so I kind of live in equal distances to like Mass, Rhode Island, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different stuff around, which is nice because different states have like just different things. So
sure,
I'm able to go, and I know some people in Mass who are sober, which is nice. One of my good friends who I met on Instagram lives in Rhode Island. So there's a lot of different kind of things going on. And especially with my situation with like the license thing, that person that I know in Rhode Island, like she has to do all of that too, and kind of has learned how to do it through what I've gone through.
Right.
Like, and know what to expect. I think in my situation, I tried finding people who had gone through this and couldn't. So it's just nice to have people in those surrounding states that you can kind of get together with. And her and I have a lot in common. So, and we bounce, like when we're having a hard time, like we'll bounce stuff off of each other. So it's a really nice space, but also we know that space is judgment free, which is nice.
Right.
Right. Yeah, no matter how unique we think our stories are, we're not. There's somebody else that's done the exact same thing we have.
And there's people who have a different story and maybe they had it a little easier. And then there's some people that had it really fucking hard. So it's like there's so many different levels, which is why I try to let people know, like, recovery looks different for everybody. And some people are like, oh, I'm in recovery. Some people are like, I'm in sobriety. Like, it just depends on how you think, how you feel, and how you do it. And everybody does it differently. I know people who, I've been in therapy since month 6, and I know people who haven't done any therapy. but like kind of
Right.
work through shit on their own, because there's all these books out there that can help you do that. So that's how they do it. And it's just, no way is the wrong way. I mean, unless you're like faking and fucking being dumb, but you know what I mean? Like trying to pull like wool over people's eyes, or like continuously. I've seen a pattern with certain people where they're like continuously relapsing, and like I will reach out to them, whether that is taken or not. And I will be like, look, from my experience, and I've never relapsed, but I'm like, from experience and what the stories I've heard and what I would personally do, something has to change, because nothing changes if nothing changes.
Right.
So I'm like,
Right.
change one thing. Just try to change one thing that you're doing, and that might help you out.
Exactly.
Well, and we were on another podcast, and I had brought this up after the fact, after I listened to it. But one of the questions at the end, the guy asked, same thing. If you got this chronic relapser, what do you tell him? Do you tell him to keep going and keep trying? And I and I hesitated when he asked me the question, and I felt bad after the fact. I was hoping that it didn't, pop up and clearly, listen, or to the people listening, that I hesitated, but it did. But the point was exactly what you just said, is that Mike and I have talked to people about this, through the AA program. With that, again, there's some structure. There's that you went through a structured thing, just worded differently from what it sounds like with Russel Brand. But the whole point is, if somebody is, it's not that people shouldn't keep trying, but yeah, if you keep walking and you run into the fucking wall every single time, move over and walk through a door.
Yeah.
Don't keep walking into that same wall. And I remember telling a guy, I can't remember and I haven't sponsored too many people, but there was one person that I had sponsored at one point, and he had relapsed a couple of times. I just told him, I'm like, the thing of it is, obviously make a phone call, reach out to people, blah, 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 do all the different things, but I said, you got to think back a little bit to every time you pick up or every time you use, what were you doing at that time? And sometimes it is just, this little bit of a direction change, and granted, if you didn't pick up the phone, do that. If you didn't go to a meeting, do that. If you didn't reach out to somebody. But, Mike and I always talk about I know for a fact, I couldn't do this on my own, right? Right, Mike?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. I say it all the time. I'm a loner and I'm an isolator and all that good stuff. But yeah, I need other people to do this. I can't do it on my own.
Right. And that's the thing, like you were talking about, Ashley, is having that community of people. And Mike and I lean on each other about freaking everything. There's, and I say this openly all the time. There's very few decisions I make on my own. And if it has to do with a sobriety thing, I talk to Mike. If it has to do, with financial things and stuff like that, I go to my sister, because she's got a good head on her shoulders, and a lot of times it's the three of us have talked about, things like that too. So,
Right.
yeah, you got to have people. So, and my reason for asking the question to begin with about the location was that we've talked to, like Christine, that we had on, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And there's been other women that I've seen post on like Instagram and things like that, where, they've not had and I'll just say, it wasn't necessarily super bad experiences where they were harmed, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable at an AA meeting. And I was just kind of wondering, in your area, is that the only meeting you went to? Did you ever go to like young people's? I'm just trying to get an idea of AA in different areas.
I went to that meeting, and then really I was just, because of my drive, if I was able to drive, I believe I would have went and tried again, because I was in such like this place of like, where do I go from here?
Right.
I did end up, because I talked about that a lot when I started on TikTok, and this guy had me pop into this meeting that was, it had like everybody, and I still just, it wasn't for me.
Right.
And I went in there with like, it wasn't like I had my situation. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be horrible, and I'm just going to hate it. It's the way it's done is very different than the way that I think. And I think I'm a very outside of the box thinker. And so for me, just what was being said and like these different things, it just wasn't for me. And that's fine. And I was happy that I went into that meeting, because if I only went to one, what would that show? That would show that I just like gave up, and that's not what I do. So I was like, let me go into this situation. But yeah, so I never really did anything else. And I have like hardcore AA people, like they would like attack me on TikTok, and I don't give a fuck. So I'm like, whatever, I'm fucking sober. Like this one guy, he speaks out a lot. He's part of like this really cool unit that I love. but he had said something and like mentioned a comment somewhere that I 100% disagreed with. And he said, well, if somebody didn't go to AA, then they're in the closet drinking. And I was like infuriated because like I'm very open and I work very hard to maintain my sobriety. And I was like, this guy basically just said, I'm faking my shit. And I was like, this is not okay. Like, and I went to my friend who is also in like the same communities online that I am, and her and I actually like talked about it. She was like, "Did you see that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it made me really upset." And we were talking about it, and for us that was closed-minded, because how are you going to do that? But then there's all these other people that you know personally that haven't done that, and they're sober, they're not drinking in a closet. So that really like bothered me, the way like I felt like somebody was attacking my sobriety, and I took that personal, although it wasn't personally to me. I took that personal because I'm like, I work really freaking hard, and this guy's basically saying like, you don't.
Right.
And and that's hard for me, and that's what I could see in that one meeting that I was in, that it was like that guy, when he like was chewing me into an asshole, like he was coming from that same place, right? He wasn't opening his mind. Like he wasn't like, oh shit, she doesn't have cravings. Like that's fucking awesome. Like she doesn't have to deal with that. That's such a hard fucking thing to deal with. Like, you know what I mean? And she doesn't, like, that's great. Like, how does she do that? Like, maybe I want to know how that's done. Because he said he's had cravings ever since he stopped, and he had been sober for like 45 years.
Right.
Like, so I'm like, let's like talk. Like, why do you have to attack me? So I'm just like, and I kind of have that, and I see the pattern through other people, and not everybody, but other people who have done that program, where they have like this mind, because it's a lot of people see it as like, oh well, I'm in AA and I do it this way, and then like they're a community too. But you got to expand your mind and your way of thinking. Like, not everybody is going to do it the same way, and sobriety is literally trending right now, and everyone's getting sober. Like, even people who haven't had like some crazy fucking story are like, you know what? I just don't like my relationship with alcohol right now, and I'm just not going to do this anymore. So it's like, we need to keep an open mind and not try to judge somebody. Like, that's the last thing that we don't want. That I don't want somebody judging me, especially on my past. So why would you do that to somebody else? So it was hard to get over that. Like, I was mad at AA as a whole for a while, until I was like, I opened my mind to, this is a great foundation. Like, I tell people to go to meetings, and I think that surprises people. I don't think people expect me to say that, but if you cannot stop on your own, you need a foundation. That AA and NA can give you that.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah. And, just because someone is I'm using my air quotes, first air quotes of the podcast, in the program, doesn't mean they're truly working the program.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're truly working the program, you are open to other ideas. That's all in the book, man. And you need to realize that the path is open for a lot of different ways to do this. That's in the 12 and 12, man. The hoop we have to jump through is a lot bigger than we think it is. So this narrow path that these people in the rooms are walking, I like that path to be as broad as possible, because I want as many people as possible to be sober and better people.
Well,
absolutely,
and that's the thing too, that in one of the things that in everything that Mike just said, but on top of that too, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are suggestions. That's right there. There's nobody that says now. Granted, it starts off, rarely have we seen a person fail, and in the original version was, we've never seen a person fail, right, Mike?
Right. He was thoroughly followed the path.
Right. So there's a path, there's a recipe, they're showing us, as our sponsor used to say, how to make the cake. All we got to do is follow the directions. But the deal is, if you choose not to do that, and it works for you, I mean, it is what it is. That would not work for me, and I know that wouldn't work for Mike. But the whole point is, everything that Mike just said about you've got to be open-minded. And here's a funny thing too. So I started listening to podcasts, sobriety podcasts, like a year ago in November. I had in all this time, I had never heard the term sober curious. I had never
Mhm.
heard the term gray area. There's a couple other ones that are out there, and I'm like, what is this thing? And I'm like listening, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like you just said too, Ashley, is that there are people now that just realize that they don't have a, and I've heard that statement said they don't like their relationship with alcohol, so they're choosing not to drink. Now, is this it's not necessarily the I'm in recovery, I'm AA sober and that type of sobriety, but they're not drinking, oh, alcohol free. That's a lot of people just would rather
Yeah.
use that term. I had never heard of any of these things, but I started telling Mike, like I'm a little kid, I'm like, did you hear about these things? I'm like, there's this whole sober curious thing. There's this gray area stuff. I'm like, I don't even fucking know what this shit is, man. So I kept listening, and I know that we've got a lot of followers on Instagram that are not AA based. I know that for a fact. Even
Mhm.
The small amount of followers we have on Facebook that are not AA based. So there's a lot of that stuff going on out there, and it's good. It's great.
Yeah, so I want to pop back to something Mike said quite a while ago, but he had said, you know, he was talking about isolation. And yes, do you need a community? I 100% believe that. But can you also isolate? 100% yes, because that's how I did the beginning. For me, that's
Right.
how I did it because I was in an isolated situation for 4 months. What was I supposed to do? Like, I had to get used to everything, like letting people in again, like trusting people. A lot of people that I knew didn't even know I had a problem. So I was just like, how do I navigate this? And I needed to, and this is like a famous quote of mine, I needed to be by myself to fix myself because
Right.
I couldn't do the steps with anybody else. That's a solo journey. That's a solo
Oh.
thing. And without the steps, I would never have started emotional recovery, which I continue to do, which is how I stay sober.
Right.
For me, it
Right.
was emotional. And I knew that. So for
Right.
me,
Oh, yeah.
without that structure from that book from Russel Brand, who had gone into the rooms and into meetings and had that knowledge and was like, shit, this was hard for me to understand. Let me break it down for people. And that, I mean, that's just, some people want to isolate and some people can't. For me, my addiction, I was a social person. So I knew if I did that again, I would be drinking like freaking quick. So I was like, I need to find another way to be. Like, I can't be this way. So I don't think isolating is a bad thing. When I got out of jail, I knew one person who was sober, and I had specific family members, not all, who were like in my corner, and I had a friend that was really supportive. And that was it in the beginning. And then I had, all my normie friends who like knew I had an issue and were like so happy that I was choosing to not partake. So, and then I was put in shitty situations too, which if I didn't have that foundation, like who knows where I would be. So I'm grateful for that situation because it really did, persevere, but it's a personal choice. Like, I made a personal decision to never drink again on April 3rd, 2019.
Right.
Like, and I knew,
Yeah.
and when I came out, trust me, devil done showed up, and I was able to be like, nope, I'm all set, with somebody literally sitting there like judging me for not drinking. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, what is going on? And no, you know what? That's a situation that I cannot put myself in. So I need to figure this shit out. And I mean, I'm glad I was put in that situation, but it doesn't mean isolating doesn't. Sometimes people think about isolation as, okay, you're alone and you have nobody in your corner. That's not really what isolation is. That is a
Mhm.
type of isolation, absolutely, but not the type that most people have.
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, working the steps, you don't do it with somebody else until you get to the fifth step anyway.
Mhm.
It's, as our grand sponsor used to say, he hates that term, but it's an inside job. It's an inside job.
Mhm.
We have to do the work. Nobody can do it for us. So absolutely. I mean, yeah, when you're sitting there writing your fourth step, you're doing that by yourself. You
Mhm.
have to.
And then going along with what Bill said, so right now, recently, NA beverages are like, that's actually something that was on my list. NA beverages are literally just there, but
Mhm.
but there's like, it's like a catch situation because the NA beverages are inside liquor stores.
Right.
Right.
So you have to be comfortable enough, which takes fucking time, to go into a liquor store. And most liquor stores don't give a fuck and put regular beverages right in the middle of where they're having all their other stuff, because it's the same company. So it's just like, you need to be able to navigate that. But some people are saying, you know what, I don't like my relationship with alcohol, so I'm going to drink NA beer instead.
Right.
I don't like my relationship with tequila. Well, I'm going to try NA tequila and see, because I'm not going to get drunk off of that. So that's a personal preference choice, where there is no AA, there is no step work for these people, because they're just not really liking their relationship. Where with us, we were fucking addicted. So there's a big difference. There's a big difference.
Well, and I think you and Mike and I have talked about it. It got brought up because we've been approached. Has it been? If it hasn't been 3 companies, it's been at least 2 that wanted us to do some sort of promotion for them on NA type of thing. And it was pretty early in our process in the podcast and on Instagram. And Mike and I actually we talked about it. We're like, yeah, we can't do that because you know, what did you say, Mike? You know, I mean, first of all, you don't see the point in how they could distill out, you know, booze to, you know, like beer is one thing. And you said you even like you like the taste of beer, right, Mike?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you know, I like it, but I don't like it enough to fuck around.
There's a it's a thin line.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It's a thin line because you could drink that and they'd be like, oh fuck, I missed the real thing.
Right.
I'm going to get the real. There's a thin line, so you have to be like, it's hard because there's a line. And then there's like, okay, well, if I go over this line, am I going to be good? If I go over this line, am I going to be bad? And you need to know if you're strong enough to be able to be good.
Which I think I am. You know, I'm fairly convinced that I wouldn't have a problem with it. It wouldn't trigger me. But yeah, you know, I mean, yes, I like the taste, but I don't like it that much that I need to fuck around. I've got plenty of other things I can drink that tastes just as good or not better. Yeah, you know, I mean, a big thing for me at the end was I drank vodka and grapefruit juice. You know, that was what I put down me at the end, and I have no desire to drink grapefruit juice anymore, just because. Why?
I can super relate to that. So I would do like vodka and white grapefruit juice because I ran restaurants for a long time. So I liked it. So that's what I would stock. And I literally cannot drink seltzer and grapefruit juice together.
Yeah.
Because I'm like super, I'm like, what the fuck? This is like, I'm like, whoa, I feel like it's bad. So, but for us, our story with the NA stuff is a lot different than your guys's. So I wanted to try it. I didn't even know it existed. And then when I found out it existed, I was like, damn, that's kind of cool, but that's kind of tricky. And then I met my husband, and then we like kind of talked about it. I was like, I really want to try it. And he's like, I'm just really scared. I really want you to respect that. I don't want you to do that. So I was like, I get it. And that was him like looking out for my sobriety and not wanting me to have to do a bunch of shit all over again. So I really respected that. And then
looking out for his own ass too. He not to deal with you.
And then Christmas came, and our neighbor knew we were both sober. So she gave us NA wine. So we kind of looked at it, and we were like, all right, let's try it. Like, it's Christmas, like, whatever. We were about to go to Iceland. We're like, well, all right, let's try it. So we poured it, and we both took one sip and looked at each other and was like, whoa. Like, because it tasted so much like real wine. We looked at each other like, this could be really, air quote, triggering to people because it's like, it tastes so much like the real thing. And then we did that, and then we were good. And then we went to Iceland, where they have 0% NA stuff in restaurants, like everywhere. It's like a very popular thing in Europe. So we had gone to like this spa, and they had it. So we drank it and we tried it. And Matt and I were like, wow, this shit is really, really good. And for us, that didn't taste like we were good since that first time. So we drank some during our trip there. And then we came home and like we're on the hunt for it because we were like, it's so good. Like, this is great. And so we partook in that like on and off for a while. And then we kind of entered like a weird phase. So then I was like, I take like time for myself in the morning because I isolated a lot. So I like to still isolate in the morning and kind of have my routine. And my husband gives me that space.
Both of us are the same way.
Yeah. So I go out into the living room. It's 10 a.m. and he's drinking an NA beer. And I look at him and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing right now? And so I know enough of his story to know that that's what he did when he was in addiction.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep an eye on this. So then I just noticed that like we were reaching for that and not seltzer, that and not water, that. So then I was like, okay, this is not okay. And I feel like this is like a tricky situation. So I said, I like had a conversation with my husband. I was like, I think we just need to take like a break and create some boundaries. And really like, if we really want it on like holidays and special events, absolutely. But other than that, I think we need to stop. I'm like, you were drinking a beer at 10 a.m. That's literally not okay. So, and I noticed it about myself too. And I used to love like getting different kinds of seltzers and like things like that. And so I just kind of, I was like, no, we don't have to do this anymore. Like, we're good. And like I said, it's a tricky situation because you have to go into a liquor store. And sometimes I'd go in and like go for it and I'd be good. And sometimes I'd go in and be like, oh, I used to drink that. 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 And it's just weird. And then I would think like, what if somebody fucking sees me?
Right.
Right? Are they going to be like, oh, Ash is not sober anymore. She was in the liquor store. So it's just like, for us, it just wasn't working out. And honestly, the price difference between that and real alcohol is ridiculous.
Right.
So Sam came out with a NA drink, and it was $12.99 for a 6-pack. For their 18-pack of the alcoholic version of that same drink, $12.99. And Matt and I looked at each other like, what the fuck? Like, why? And then we like, and that came to mind too. I was like, we're spending too much fucking money on something that doesn't even have alcohol. Like, this is just not okay. So I just noticed patterns and I wasn't happy with them. So I just communicated with him and we both decided, you know what, we don't need this. Like, there's no point. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, if you find yourself having to control anything, you're probably out of control.
Yeah.
You know, same can go with ice cream and whatever else you're ingesting.
Right.
I'm doing too much of this. Maybe I need to think about it. Yeah, maybe you do.
Well, and with when it comes to liquor stores and things like that, I just don't. I wouldn't go into a liquor store to buy my soda. You know, the only time that I would, I mean, literally, if I was out in the middle of like fucking nowhere, and that was the only place that I could grab a 12-pack of Diet Coke, I would do that. You know, but beyond that, I mean, so that's the one thing. But the other thing too is that I don't see the, kind of like Mike was talking about. I mean, I don't see the point of if I had an NA whatever. Let's just go with beer because it's the easiest thing. If I was walking around with a bottle of beer, sooner or later I know for a fact I'd want the real thing. It's like decaf coffee, and Mike and I joke about this. It's the meme that I posted. Trying to find a hooker that wants to cuddle. It just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense to me. So, like Mike said, there's plenty of other things that we can enjoy out there. And that made me laugh about it. Doesn't have alcohol, but he's drinking an NA beer at 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, and again, maybe you're, again, my air quotes, your normal individual, that wouldn't be a big deal, but maybe it would. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely not our thing. And we had talked about that too. So, hey, if there's people out there that can and do drink NA drinks and it gives them no issues of thinking I would rather have the real thing to get messed up, more power to you. I don't care. I'm not, it's not a judgment thing for either Mike or I. We talked about that too. So it's just, choice, definitely.
Definitely. And like I said, it's that's trending right now.
Right.
It's like everybody wants to try it, but it's like, and I've not heard of a story of relapse surrounding it. I have heard of people terrified to do it because they're terrified they will.
Right.
So, and I think there's different stages personally of a relapse, right? It's just like, you just don't like find yourself in the area where you need to pick up. It goes through your mind. It circles through your mind first. So, and I think that's why emotional sobriety and regular sobriety really are like they coexist with each other because they go together.
Right.
People say you will emotionally
definitely.
relapse before you will physically relapse. So when you're emotionally in that state, you need to be like, whoa, let me back the fuck up. Let me figure out what the hell's going on and why am I having these thoughts? And for me, my situation was just so bad that as soon as I think about alcohol, I remember something. And then I'm like, nope, we can't fucking do that. And then it goes back and forth, you know? So it's you know, a tricky situation. So one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is relationships. So Mike is with a normie. I am not. My husband is sober, so very different story. But he was 6 months
and actually,
sober when we met,
real quick,
and I was over a year.
let's pause on that since we're going to jump a different topic there. This is probably a perfect time for us to take a quick break. Mike, if you want to lead us out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So stay tuned. We're going to be back in just one moment after this brief announcement from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, it's your friends at Sober Not Mature. Have you visited our website lately? If not, it's www.SoberNotMature.com. While you're there, you can listen to all of our episodes or find links to where our episodes can be played, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and others. We do have a blog page for some of the writings that we've done. We've got a web store where you can take a look at all of our merchandise, buy yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie, maybe even a mug. You can see our review section where you can actually leave a review or see what people have been saying about us. You can check out our sponsor page. We've got a contact page. Basically, any opportunities that we have to contact or interact with us are on our website. Also, you can buy us a coffee, or you can just find other ways to support the podcast. Visit us today at www.SoberNotMature.com. All right, everyone, welcome back. And I just thought that was a good place to take a break. And Mike, nice job again.
Yep.
You know, with company in the room, our new friend in the room. Every once in a while, he'll mess up these. It's just something as simple. He did it the first time he did it with the now a word from our sponsor. It made me laugh because I wasn't expecting it. So then I'm like, you know, you need to do that from now on, right? So sometimes he kind of cheeses it up a little bit, but so we kind of we're done with we were talking about the NA. I think we're all pretty much on the same page with that, as far as, but not a judgmental thing, but it's really not our deal for any of the three of us, obviously four, including your husband. So you started
and we're talking about non-alcoholic stuff, not Narcotics Anonymous.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I probably should have made that clear. See, and this is the reason that Mike and I hang out together, because he'll jump in. He's like, "You realize what you just said? Like, didn't mean it that way." But okay. So Ashley, you're starting to talk about relationships. So yes, you said Mike is with a normie. You're with an individual that's sober. So let's start again from there.
Sure. And then, Bill, I don't know what your situation is.
Oh, messed up.
He's a player.
I think you're with somebody, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to assume.
Nope, I'm not. But no. So the thing of it is, let's get back to me. You go into your part of it. The thing of it is, Mike just said he's a player. I'm in the field, ladies. I'm single, just in case anyone cares. Just message us the whole bit. Yeah. I like long walks on the beach and,
SoberNotMature@gmail.com.
No, it's info@SoberNotMature.com.
Whatever.
Just whatever. You
just Instagram. He's quick to respond to Instagram, ladies, so just go to Instagram.
Yeah, if anyone seriously wants to Instagram stalk me, I'm cool about it, man. Yeah, I'm good for it.
If you're bored, he's your guy.
You know what? I'm gonna change that on the dating profiles that I'm on. If you're bored, I'm your man. There we go. Ashley, thank you. I gotta write that down. If you're bored, I'm your.
So anyway, Ashley, while he's doing that,
so what I would love to know about your story, Mike, is like kind of from the beginning. Did you only date this one normie that you're with now, or did you kind of like jump around and date like sober people, non-sober people, or clean people and non-clean people? And how did that work?
Well, it's suggested that we wait a year before we get into a relationship. I waited 5 years, and
Nice.
yeah, I suppose wasn't all that great.
Depending on which level of nice we're speaking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I got into a thing online with a person in California who we had a bunch of mutual friends. She said she was. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible. She said she was sober. Turns out she wasn't. She moved to Cleveland, moved in with me. It was a goddamn mess. um, and yeah, and that lasted, I don't know, 6 months, maybe something like that. She had to go. She did go. And my sponsor said, look, man, I know this sucks, but you clearly are ready to try to be in a relationship, get back out there. So I did. I met my current girlfriend. We've been together for 6.5 years, and we met on Tinder.
Yeah. Swipe right, y'all. Swipe right.
Yep, we did. And, and we took it slow. I am not her first drunk. I am her first sober drunk. Yeah, we took it slow. She actually, in the beginning went, nah, I can't fucking do this. And I stuck with her because I knew there was something there. And yeah, 6.5 years later, we are still together. We do not live together. And I think that helps. Yeah, we've got a great relationship, and I don't see it going anywhere. Yeah, she respects my sobriety. She's she's very grateful for my sobriety. Like I said, I'm not her first drunk. I'm not her first drug addict. She's had a lot of those in her life, and she appreciates me doing the work to keep myself sober, which helps a lot.
Well, and I'm going to just as a sideline here, and her name is Chris. We had her on. That was again mid 20s as far as the episode number. Chris is number one. She's fucking awesome. I love her to death. I do. I adore her. But the other thing that's cool is that she's as close to being, and again, one of us as anyone, and she's part of everything, part of all of our groups, our sober group. She's friends with all of our friends. She does the benefits and the charity things that we do. She's all fucking in with all this stuff, which is cool in a sense. I mean, that part's cool, obviously, but just as an individual, I mean, she's wonderful. So,
yep. Thank you.
So now that goes with something where when you're in a relationship with somebody who's not sober, right? And you like Mike, you're with a person who you didn't have to explain or try to get them to understand you because they already did. They already saw it themselves and experienced it. So her compassion and empathy for your situation was much different than a normal person would be because she had been like kind of in the middle of that.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's seen all the bad aspects of what this disease is, and she gets to see the good aspects of the solution to that disease.
She's like, this can actually be shiny and wonderful.
Yeah.
But just real quickly, in the time that I've been sober, and I've been around and I've dated and I've hung out with people that have been sober and people that have not been sober. The people that I've hung out with that are, that have not been sober, not big drinkers, people that didn't drink around me, I knew that if they were, out with family or whatever, they might have a drink. But I haven't been in a long-term relationship where I've had to deal with that on either end. But I did have two people, that were sober and then were not when I was hanging out with them. So those are tough situations to deal with, people that you care about on any level, in a relationship. But I pretty much come down to the fact that, unless that I don't think I could be in not even think, I know for a fact I could not be in a long-term relationship with somebody who drinks normally. no offense to them, if they can, like Mike
Mhm.
always says, if you can have some drinks and get up and not hurt people and take care of your kids, more power to you. But that's not my thing. So it would, I know for a fact over time I know it would bother me. I wouldn't be able to tolerate, even every once in a while something get loaded. Mike and I said that before. We don't want to deal with ourselves,
Right.
because our old selves. I don't want to date somebody that acts like I used to. Fuck that, man.
Right.
Now, Mike, I will assume that Chris does not drink.
No, I mean, she'll have, and I make fun of her. She'll have half a glass of wine a couple of times a year. And, she'll have that half a glass of wine go, ooh, I'm starting to feel it. I need to stop, which we completely don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but basically she doesn't drink. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So I'll explain my situation a little bit. I dated a few people before I dated my husband. So I dated a friend of mine who had seen me before my addiction, during my addiction, and then obviously seen me sober. So we started to date. I don't ever recommend dating your friends. I don't think it ever turns out the way that you want it to. And although he had like a lot, I think it was the first perfect relationship, like first relationship sober, because there was a lot of space and distance. There was a lot of like me being able to like be by myself. And so for that, I respected, but he did that because we were friends. He knew me. So there's a different aspect, but that also turned into me not getting enough of what I needed in a relationship as well. So that ended. And then I went on like maybe 2 dates. I hated online dating. I didn't like doing it. I wanted to meet I'm very like old soul, old fashioned. I wanted to meet somebody the normal way. And I was like, you know what? The universe is going to do what it's going to do or whatever. So then a couple weeks later, I was with my friend and I was like joking. I was like, I need a man. Like, what is going on? And she was like, I know one person who's single. So she was like, okay. She was like, yeah, it's my friend Matt, blah, blah, blah. She was, I'll message him. And like, he was in the middle of golfing. His first response was, I'm not interested. Didn't like see anything. Like literally was like, no. And he had been single for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So he had dated like 2 people and like very short term and like just didn't like them and didn't want to move forward. And like after a few months was like, no, I'm good. So then he came back later when he was home and was like, why do you think we would get along? And so she, said what she said or whatever. And he was like, okay, well, let me like Facebook stalk her because that's what people do. And so he went on there. And so I'm a huge Yankees fan. My husband is a huge Red Sox fan. So the first thing he saw was, like, fucking really? Like, you've known me for like decades and this is who you pick? Like, and then he like started seeing stuff and he was like, oh my God, she's beautiful. Like, and he was like, okay. He was like, I'll talk to her. So then I'm not like a middleman dealer kind of person. It just aggravates me. So I was like, I'm just going to message him on Facebook because she had screenshot me like what he was saying. So I was like, okay, let's just like talk and see what happens. We had no idea the other one was sober. No idea. None. Right. And I wasn't really in a place where I had decided like, oh, I could or couldn't be around somebody who drank. Like I had never experienced that. So I was just like, I don't know. And then it's like this story that we tell. So we messaged, I had plans that day. He wanted to like literally meet that day. And I was like, oh, can we do tomorrow? I have plans with a friend today. And we met. Now, mind you, I didn't drive. So I had to tell him part of myself because like he had to drive an hour to where I lived. We lived an hour apart. So he drove to where I lived and we went on a hike and then we went to lunch. And then we went to like a green and kind of talked. And then I went home. We were together for 8 hours. So we kind of like, after that, we kind of were like, okay, we want to see each other again. Like we know that. He literally called his mom and was like, I'm going to marry her. like this is like, this is legit. Like, and his family tried to get him like not to go. He was like, oh my God, don't do this. Like whatever. And he was like, no, whatever. What do I have to lose? And then, so we had to see each other. We only saw each other, we saw each other every weekend because we couldn't see each other during the week. Well, my husband was not used to being in any kind of a relationship with another person. So like, he wouldn't talk to me like all day. And I was just like, this is weird. And so I would talk to my friend. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I don't even know if he likes me because he's literally not talking to me for like 13 hours. Like, what is going on? So it was a lot of like learning how to like date again and doing all of that. And then he opened up to me about like his stuff really early on. And I just told him, I'm like, I need you to respect that. I just need some time. Because I couldn't even really open up to a lot of my friends, let alone this person I didn't meet. I just met. So it took a little bit of time, and I told him, and like his response was just like so perfect. Like I was like, I felt so safe, and it just kind of worked from there. And I mean, there's been a lot of learning. We were both single for a very long time. I was not single as long as he was, but it was a long time. Our ages were completely different. I'm 35, my husband's 48. So there's a big gap. So there were like a lot of heavy conversations, like literally the first day. So, you know, we had those and we figured those out. And then he was driving back and forth, you know, to come get me and bring me home. And I just, like, I kind of knew from the beginning, like this just, I feel like his soul is like the other half of mine. Like, it's just weird. But his drinking story was so different that made me nervous. Because I was like, how would I don't want alcohol in my home. I don't want to be around it if I don't have to.
Right.
So like, how do I navigate that? And his friend had told me like, he'd been like, he would stop for 6 months and then start and then stop and then start and then stop and start. And I was like nervous for the starting again. And so I had to have like a really serious conversation. I'm like, if you wanted to drink, would you tell me? Like, what does that look like for you? And he said he had no desire. But again, I knew that he had been very back and forth. And his trouble wasn't like legal. You know, I'll slightly tell what he did. A friend of his lived with him for a month while his friend and his friend's wife were like kind of going through a little bit of a rough patch. And she came to pick him up and he was going to go back home. And his friend had seen how he drank and how fast and how much. And they had a very tough conversation with him. And they were like, you're really lonely. You're depressed, but you need to not drink. And so what he did is he drank for a week. And instead of putting the bottles like in the recycling bin, he put them on the counter. When he saw how many bottles were on the counter at the end of the week, he was like, I have a problem. I need to stop.
Yeah, if I ever saved,
I was gonna say I wouldn't have any room to live.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, that you know, the interesting part with all of that is, like you said, that I mean, people have different stories and different backgrounds, but that would have been probably my biggest concern too. And again, now having two people that I hung out with who were sober, and you know, not everyone had I guess the one person had about the same amount of time that I had at that time. There was no guarantees in any of this, and you had mentioned about not relapsing, Ashley. I haven't relapsed yet, and I always say yet, and it's hugely important for me to add that, because I mean, I know for a fact that, you know, I'm no better than anyone else. I mean, just because Mike and I are coming up on, you know, 13 years sober, it's cool, and we value every day, and we're super fucking proud of our time. But the amount of work that went through for us to get to this point literally will be gone with one drink. Everything, fucking all of it. And it's not going to happen slowly. It's going to happen right away. I mean, I'm not going to stick around and just start drinking in front of my family again. I know Mike's not going to stick around and start drinking in front of Chris and our family again. It's not going to happen that way. We can't be those people anymore around the people that love and care about us, you know? So I think that's a valid concern and, and a valid conversation to have with anyone going into stuff like that, you know?
So, ladies, Bill is looking for a sober woman. Sober woman.
Well, and again, if we're talking about a long-term relationship, there's me being a pig. Yeah, I had to do that at least once, because that's what my daughter says it every once in a while. Because here's the other funny part. So you just mentioned the age difference. So one of the other things I thought we'd end up getting in conversation anyhow, because you brought up your age, so I was going to bring it up. So Mike is 55, I'm 54, you're 35, you know? So, and I think that's cool that even just this conversation up to this point, that the mindsets that we have, they're a little different, no doubt, from your path versus ours and that sort of thing. But the age difference when it comes to this whole sobriety thing, it fascinates me, how everyone can be on the same level from that age group, or from different age groups, which is
Mhm.
which is really cool. And I think that there's been times when, and I can't think of anyone in particular, Mike, but there's people that we've known that are 20 years older than us, that were like, damn,
Mm-hmm.
this person's got either they're super structured or they've got a completely different mindset, but on the same path. So it's just kind of cool, with I don't know, we're all on the same path, but Mike's got a daughter that's 37. I've got a daughter that's 35. And I joke with my daughter all the time. I'm like, how young can I go when I date?
Yeah.
and she just looks at me and all the time. I mean, it's been an inside joke with us for years and years. But I mess with her all the time. She mentioned that one of her friends had just gotten divorced. This was over Thanksgiving that they were down. I forget whenever the hell it was. She was down here. We're sitting at a table. No, I'm sorry, it was mom's funeral.
Mm.
And she'd said something about, she's like, oh yeah, the friend's just recently divorced. And I looked at her and she's like, no. and I'm just messing around with her. But so what do you think? And again, knowing and I know people that are obviously of different age groups in
Mhm.
sobriety. How do you feel like, or do you see a difference in the mindset maybe of people that are your age versus our age, and are you seeing any of that stuff that blends, or is do you not think along the same lines, or how do you feel about the age differences in a sobriety standpoint?
Yeah. So my one sober friend that I had was in his late 40s. I think he's like a couple years older than my husband.
Okay.
And him and I, like, we worked together a few times. And so it was interesting because we'd seen each other also on like such a different level. And he did AA for 90 days. And then he did, I'm assuming, the same book that you guys are talking about every day.
Right.
And then I was actually, before I entered addiction, when I was a normie for a short period of time, I dated somebody who was in recovery from NA. So I didn't drink around him. I respected like his space, and he went to NA and I would go to meetings with him sometimes. And it was just a very interesting setting. And I created a very understanding atmosphere around that. I'm an empathetic person anyway, but it was interesting. And what I've seen the most is that more of the people who are a lot older do need and have done NA or AA, and have that structure and have that routine for themselves every morning, where I think a lot of the younger people that I know, it's half and half.
Right.
Half of them have gone to AA and half of them have figured it out and done whatever they've done. And there is a different mindset because the younger people that I do talk to just say that there's a disconnection for them in AA, that it's just for older people and that there's not a lot of younger people in the rooms and like all this different stuff, which obviously probably during COVID changed because obviously the room, you're not just going to have older people. You do have younger people that do attend meetings. So I think the biggest difference would be that I think the mindset is a lot different. The mindset is, okay, I can't do this by myself, but maybe I can do this with other people like me.
Right.
And I think that's where that goes. And there's an understanding between two people. And I think with older people, I don't think they're as like crazily outgoing as younger people. So younger people tend to like have no inhibitions, like just don't care. They'll be friends with everybody and let people in. And I do kind of feel like older people have a little bit more of a problem. This is just my experience with people I've talked to
Sure.
in recovery. So,
Well,
but so like,
and even
I think it just depends.
even when we got sober, I mean, again, you figure it wasn't that long ago. I mean, honestly, 2010, but the technology that's happened in the last 13 years, and I mean, not that there wasn't Facebook and Instagram and all social media and all, in the internet, of course, obviously was around, but the tools that people have that are literally at their fingertips these days, there's a huge difference. I mean, there's a huge difference, and I'll agree with that, because we were we were taught a certain structure and it works for us, and that's what we continue to do. But again, these people, these folks that we have, as far as the community of people on Instagram, there's a ton of people that have been sober for a longer periods of time that don't necessarily do have the same structure. But I think we've kind of talked about that, what works for us, sort of thing. And Mike, I mean, take a look at our old home group, all the guys that sit in the back. They have completely, I won't say completely, but different mindsets than us. Absolutely, wouldn't you say?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, definitely. Again, man, whatever works for you.
Right.
I don't want anybody telling me how to work my program. I'm sure as hell not going to tell anybody else how to work theirs.
Yep.
And that's the difference. Like you talked about earlier, Ashley, that guy who, tore into you because here's another air quote, not doing it right. That's just bullshit. If what everybody's got structure. You talked about different structure, but everybody's got a certain amount of structure. We have to. And if we're staying within that structure and working some sort of a program, no matter what that program is, we get the results. That's the bottom line. If you're a real alcoholic, you're a real drug addict, you really have this disease, we need to do certain things to combat that disease. And if we don't, the disease wins, period. It's just that simple. So yeah, if you're doing something to treat the disease, great. That's all that matters.
Right.
And if you're not doing those things, then you're not treating it. And again, the disease will win.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was just kind of curious. And the other thing too, and I guess stepping back to when I had asked you about like the area of the country you're in. So Cleveland, is clearly not that far from Akron, 30, 40 minutes from, the birthplace of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Cleveland is big, as far as meetings and AA and in structure and all those sort of things. And when it comes to different meetings, and this is the cool part, and this is why it started to blow my mind when I heard from folks like Christine and yourself and some of these other people that we've connected with on Instagram that have had these weird experiences, and it's usually females and younger females that have had those experiences. We never experienced that in Cleveland. Cleveland's got such a good program of people, and from a women's standpoint, there's all women's meetings. There's for different races, genders, backgrounds, sexual orientations, all age groups, men's only meetings, women's only meetings, and some super cool people. So I know both. Mike still lives in Cleveland, obviously, but I mean, both of us consider ourselves to be, super fortunate to have had that available to us.
Oh yeah.
Not only then, but still, it's cool.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Like I said, if I could have driven around and found a different area, I don't know what that would have looked like and how that would have been. And, and that was, I didn't drive for 4 years. So, that's a long time. So it's difficult to say what it would be like. I have a ton of friends I've met on Instagram who literally love going to their meetings.
Right.
And, and then you have obviously some people who just are on a different path with that and really just, they can't see outside the box. They just see white and black.
Right.
So, and I'm not talking about obviously race. I'm talking about just being able to, like where you're seeing, like not being able to go outside the lines. I'm an outside of the lines person. So and I was raised by people who aren't. So so I love that I'm that way, so, but as far as like addiction goes too. So my dad was in recovery. I only know stories. I never saw my dad intoxicated my entire life. And I guess my mom told me he got into a lot of trouble. I was a baby. He got sober. He got DUIs, did some, what I was like weekend community service at that time. And then, rode a bike back and forth to work. They lived really close to where he worked. And that's all I knew about it. My dad wasn't open about it. I wish he was way more open than he was at the time. And my uncle was a super, super bad alcoholic. Like it was bad. He would like beat my aunt. He would beat her son was older, so he would like beat him. And it was just bad. Like I never wanted to be like that. So I didn't drink until I was like 26.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I drank normally maybe for a year until like my life just hit the fucking fan and I was done. So it's just a matter of I think what you do. And then I have like my brothers who I'm the oldest, so I have like one of my two younger brothers telling me that like my dad was drunk for a year. Like I would fucking remember that. Like I was older than all of them. So and I can't, a lot of people know my dad passed, so I can't ask him. But I know personally, like he never drank. And I remember in 2017, he came here and he told me that he tried like drinking like O'Doul's and he didn't like it. Like it didn't do anything for him. So he never did that. And I don't know if that was his way of being like, hey, don't even try that. I mean, I was in my addiction at that point. So I don't know I don't know what he was trying to do.
Right.
But then I found out that he'd been like drinking like a normal person for 2 years before he passed away. I didn't know that. One of his friends was like, Ken would want you to have a beer. I'm like, I 100% know that my dad would not want me to drink that.
Right.
Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I 100% know. Like, no, there's no way. So it's just, I mean, I think it depends on, and that's where my belief and how I had this disease comes from. I believe 50% of it is genetic and I believe 50% of it is not. So, and that's my belief because of I had my uncle on my mom's side, my dad, and then I had this other part of me. So I think there's a lot of reasons, I think, why people have the disease and how. And I think a lot of it has to do with the mind. So and that's my belief, which is why that's how I targeted it. You know what I mean? Like that's how I tackled it in my own story. So I think that, and my husband like literally has perfect parents. Literally. His parents are angels. Like I love them to death. Like they're amazing. And like he had no trauma, like zero.
Right. Well, Mike,
nobody in his family that has ever suffered from addiction, but he was an alcoholic.
And you've talked about the genetic side of it, Mike. You think that
Right.
From your side, you think you were born to be that way, pretty much, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Most of my family were alcoholics, and that's fine. Whatever. And well, again, and I know normies whose families were alcoholics, and they just don't. Yeah, like you said, it's about 50-50. Yes, it's definitely genetic in me. It's also definitely, I wanted to get loaded, man. I wanted to get loaded ever since I can remember. Yeah, so it's me. No matter the cause, I am what I am. I am an alcoholic, and again, I have to do certain things to treat my disease. That's I can, I can go, oh, it was this, it was that. My mommy didn't wipe my ass right when I was 6 months old. Yeah, no, I'm a drunk. I like to drink. I like the effects of alcohol. I like the effects of drugs, and that's what I am. And I don't have a choice in the matter. So move on.
Well, and that's when Mike and I had talked about it, and my dad was an alcoholic, died sober with 29 years sober. We had an uncle, that had passed as a direct result of his actions based on this disease. So my opinion when I first got sober is I just pretty much decided that, and I'm like, I don't care what got me here, but I know what I am, and I know there's a solution, and I'm part of it, And one of the things I've got a son that's 22 years old, and I've been extremely open with him from the start, just saying that just because of my dad, just because of me, doesn't mean you, but if nothing else, you got to be mindful of it, And my daughter, no issues with alcohol. Our sister, no issues with alcohol, So who knows, what and why, but yeah, that's why I wanted Mike to explain that, because he puts it pretty clearly and pretty bluntly all the time, and I was like that, yeah, and it's the easiest way to put it. It's just, yeah, I mean, really, what it comes down, I never drank normally. I just wanted to get buzzed up, man. And if I,
Yep.
to go back to the whole NA thing, sooner or later, if I have that NA beer or NA drink in my hand, and I get this froofy little thing looking like a margarita or whatever it is, I'm gonna be like, this is doing nothing for me. Give me the real shit, And
Right.
it's just it. That's the way I am. I know I am.
Yeah. I think that would be another difference between younger people in recovery and older people in recovery would be, I think that the way that I want to say this right, the way they're like what they're doing with mental health and trauma and triggers and all of that and PTSD, all of the things, and the way that it in reality, like taking responsibility for your actions, like taking responsibility for your life, I think there's like this big ridiculous area for it, because I think people go very extreme and like try to blame everything on their shit, and like you're your own person. You need to either get out of your shit, figure out how to deal with your shit, or you're gonna be fucked.
Right.
So like,
Yep.
people trying to blame things on triggers. People, like, I hate that I have to put trigger warning at the beginning of some of my episodes. Like, I think that is bullshit. Like, I think that's dumb. Like, you have a situation, right? And you have to deal with it. I had a super traumatic childhood, but I deal with that with my therapist. Do I share some of the things sometimes? Sure. But it's not like I'm sitting here and I'm blaming it and I'm like, I'm always going to be this way because of X, Y, and Z. Like, no, it's my job as a human being to figure out how to deal with it.
Right.
And not go back and blame something on it. Like, can it be blamed for that? Sure, I guess. But you also have to figure out if you're going to fix it or not. So I think there's like this very thin line where it's in this era where it's just like, it's too much. Like, it's just too much. Like, so I guess that's where I differ and have more of an older soul, because I had to work through my shit. I couldn't give it as an excuse of why I couldn't fucking go to work. Like,
right.
you can't, like, how do you do, like, how, like, I just can't even, like, that's a gap for me, because it's like, you still have to go and like figure your stuff out. Like, you can't sit there on that,
It's alcoholic. It's true alcoholic behavior to say nothing is my fault.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No. And so, again, that walking in a different direction, I had to go 180 degrees and say everything is my fault. Even the shit that isn't my fault is my fault.
Yeah.
And so how do I fix it? Right. It's, yes, my mother being drunk and psychologically abusing me is my fault. And it's fine. It's fine. Yes, she had her problems. She had her demons. I forgive her. That was what that whole 8th step was about. I forgive the people that hurt me, and move on and move on. Everything that's bad in my life is my fault, and I need to fix it. No one else can. And my life is infinitely better because I think that way today.
Yeah, but also going with that. So I don't remember a lot of things. Supposedly, I don't know, my mind is protecting myself and it's blocked it out, whatever. So I had said to my therapist, because a lot of people in recovery do EMDR therapy. And recently, like the past year, I've had a lot of trouble sleeping. So I was contemplating doing it, even though I didn't want to do it. And I had a conversation with her about it. And I was like, well, how do you target a memory if I have none? Like, I remember very seldom things. And she was like, it would be really difficult. So my thing is like, okay, so I asked her, I said, so I could have been 2 years old. My dad was a loud person in general, and he did yell. And so, okay, so my dad yelled at me when I was 2, and that's my first memory as a child. And could that be why my memories are blocked out? She said, absolutely 100% yes. So that's me. That's something as a child, in my mind, correlate that as a traumatic whatever, and blocked everything in my childhood out. So I wouldn't have to relive each of those moments, right? So that's my fault. It's nobody else's fault, right? Like, my dad was a loud person in general. Maybe he yelled because I fucking pissed him off. I was 2 and probably an asshole. And then, but how is my response to that is my fault. So me not having memories technically is my fault, and I can figure out if I want to really broach those memories or not. But you know what I mean? So it is
Or
like, I can see that, Mike. I can see that side of it, because really, like I just explained, like most people would be like, well, that's my dad's fault. I don't think that's my dad's fault.
No,
Because that was my response. Like, not all of my brothers, like some of my brothers can't remember stuff, but some of them remember everything.
And the beautiful thing about doing this and living this way is I live today. I live right now. I live in the moment. You know, I don't care what fucking happened 40 years ago. It doesn't matter. It happened. It's great, whatever, or it's bad or indifferent. Right now, I'm sitting here talking with you guys, and it's pretty good. Right. You know, I'm in my nice warm house. I'm looking out the window at the snow here in Cleveland, Ohio. You know, life is good, man. You know, I could sit there and focus on bad shit, or I could sit here and focus on what's going to happen tomorrow. Ooh, is it going to be, you know, who cares? Right now, my life is good. And I'm grateful for that. And that's all that matters. I can't control what's going to happen tomorrow. And I sure as hell can't change what happened yesterday. Right now, it's beautiful.
I think that's where some people have an issue, right? And then that's where you create like this really weird, careful bubble with people, because there are some people who cannot do that. Like, I can do that, Mike can do that, but not a lot of people can do it. A lot of people they can. They won't.
Anybody can. Yeah, they don't. They can't. They won't. Exactly.
It's so much.
They're more. It's easier for them to blame other people, to not take responsibility.
100%,
of course. Yeah. It was for me for decades of my life. Yeah, it was much easier. Fortunately, the cool thing is I do take responsibility for myself, and actually, this is easier. It takes work and it's hard, but it's easier in the long run.
Yep.
Well, and that's what I was actually going to say, Mike, is that it's easier to point the finger at somebody else. And the hardest part, I know, for both of us getting sober was realizing our part in all these things and Mike said it perfectly, you know, forgiving the people that harmed us is probably, and still is to this day, you know, can be one of the most difficult things to deal with. So, but
yeah, it's difficult, but once you get on the other side of it, it's fucking beautiful, man.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely.
And then you make decisions. Like, if you're like, say, you know, both your parents did these things to you, right? Well, I accepted my parents as they are, and I tried to have relationships with both of them. And then my outcome is, well, do I really want a relationship with this one? Do I really, like, just with friends, just with whatever? You need to make that decision for yourself. Like, yes, I accept everybody for who they are. But do you expect what do you expect from them?
But I don't have to have them around me.
And you don't have to have them around you. Yep, 100%.
Yeah, you are what you are, and I accept that. Now get the fuck away from me.
Yep, 100%. Yep.
And you know what? I think that that's a perfect way to end a deep conversation and even an episode. We're at like an hour 25 now, but so here's the thing, Ashley, and you know, I mean, I think this hopefully, you know, I think that I think people will get something out of it. I know that we did, you know, so I think this is something that, and we don't necessarily have to decide now or plan on it, but you know, because I think there's probably a couple other things that you wanted to talk about. I know one in particular, you were talking about the grief, you know, side of things, which we're still, you know, obviously still dealing with, you know, from our mom's standpoint. So let's at least do this. Let's throw it out on the table and say, hey, maybe it's like, hey, call me. You know, maybe we'll, you know, we just spent like you and your husband
Bill,
said.
I can make you an ad. Do you want me? I am a marketer. I can make you an ad, and we can get you a sober girlfriend. Like, we can do it.
I'm just trying to get you laid, dude.
You know what? Hey, you know what? Do what you got to do. You've got my email address. That's I'm not going to say no to anything. But so have you?
I've heard that about you.
I know. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. I tell Mike a lot. He knows. He knows he's the one person literally in this world that he knows more about me than anyone. You know, so yeah, he knows.
Lucky me.
I have a best friend, and it's taken her a while to adjust to me this way. Like there's been a lot of like not talking, and now we're talking again. We both are like on the same page now, and I'm grateful for that. But she's known me since I was in 5th grade. Right. She knows everything about me. She knows everything about my childhood. She knows, like, literally, my sister-in-law asked me a question. And I was like, you should ask her because she probably remembers, but I fucking don't. So it's like, and it's like when you have somebody like that, there's just like this different understanding there.
Right.
And it's a great way to be able to have like a relationship. Like when I thought you guys were actually brothers. And I was like, but, like, that's great. I love that. And then when Bill explained it to me, I was like, that's fucking awesome though. Like I call my best friend, we have the same name too. And I call her my sister. Her parents call me their daughter. Like that's how I call them mom and dad. Like that's how it is. And it's a great situation. Right.
Yeah. It's been one of the wonderful, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to sobriety, but you know, Mike and I never, and I say this, we say it all the time, never would have run across each other under any other circumstance. And yeah, but we've got I've never had a friend like him in my life. All of our friends in sobriety, I've never had friends like that. But yeah, Mike and I have a very cool and unique connection, and you know, we're definitely family. So, but definitely we'll have to talk about this and see if you know, find a time to, you know, have you back on, or you could have us on your side, and we'll talk about this too. If there's a way for us, I might be able to. If I can cut this up right, I might be able to, and you let me know if you want to post some of this, or we'll just cross post and you have people listen, however you want to do, we'll figure that out. But so have you ever heard like recently how Mike closes out an episode?
No.
we've had the majority of the guests we've had on, they're like, yeah, we've just never listened to the end. Well, you're about to hear it. So so now so now it's time for Ashley, you and I, for you and I to quiet down, and Mike gets to talk us out of here.
All right.
Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. We want to thank Ashley for being a wonderful guest today. As always, be kind to each other, be good to each other. You know, rate us, subscribe, give us 5 stars, like us, share us, however all that crap works. And as always, please, 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 fuck off. Then keep fucking off. Keep fucking off until you get to a gate with a sign on it saying, you cannot fuck off past here. Climb over the gate, dream the impossible dream, and keep fucking off forever.
I fucking love that.
So here's how this started. Back episode 3, 4, whatever, we're like, we should think of a way to go out like this. And Mike's like, the first thing that came to my head is fuck off. So he was doing just that for many episodes, and then our sister found that meme and gave it to him. So that was 15, maybe even 20 episodes ago now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, so now he that's his closing on every episode, and I love it. I fucking love it. So
keep dreaming, motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly. Dream the impossible dream. Well, all right. So Ashley, seriously though, thank you. I think we talked about a lot of good stuff on here, a lot of fun stuff. It was funny. I wasn't really making notes, so my episode description on this might not be as detailed as sometimes it normally is, but.
Oh, don't even worry about it. I think it's so different than what I normally do when I go on other shows. So I love it.
Well, good. Well, again, we've heard that before too. We're different. All right. Well, Mike, I love you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
I love
Ashley,
you too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right. You guys have a good one. Bye.
Right, bye.
Bye.
As always, thank you for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. To access all of our content and interact with us, please visit our website, SoberNotMature.com. Thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you soon.